everyone. Good evening. Thanks for joining in. Very happy to see a lot of you already have joined in. I'm going to just give everybody a little bit of time for those trickling in to just settle down, join, and we'll start in a couple of minutes. While I do that, I'll obviously introduce myself and I'll also tell you a little about Interview Kickstart. So, people who are joining in, thanks for coming in, and uh, we'll give you a minute or so to settle down. Yes, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen till then. So I think all of you are aware of the topic for today, and uh, it's all going to be about Cloud Code. And we have done this session before, have were asked by popular demand to repeat this particular topic, and so here we are repeating this particular topic because it's the need of the hour. A lot of you uh, really want to understand the engineering behind Cloud Code, right? Or to put it in exact words, exactly what's written in front of you, the spec-driven development with Cloud Code, right? And primarily, this particular session is targeted towards tech professionals, senior tech professionals, and a lot of you already know about Interview Kickstart. Some of you might be new to us. So I'm going to give you a little, intro about Interview Kickstart and then about me so that you are able to relate to us better. And during the session, I'm also going to launch a couple of polls so that I understand you guys better. And when I come in a little later to talk about how you can not just get constrained by one particular masterclass, but take it forward, take your upskilling journey forward, and do like a more structured way of upskilling. I'll want to know more about you guys, and that's why I'll use the poll and talk to you guys. Yeah. So moving on, Interview Kickstart actually started we started this about 12 years ago in Santa Clara in the US. So we started in the US, still there. It's been 12 plus years. And in India, we came in about almost 2.5 years ago. We are known very popularly and famously in the tech community, tech and engineering community, for not just interview preparation, domain specific interview preparation, and domain specific AI up leveling, right? So, giving the right and customized AI skills to over 18 domains in India. And that means a backend engineer, a TPM, a product manager, a data scientist. Everybody is going to an engineering manager, even a leader like engineering manager. They all will have different uh, you know, journeys. Somebody has, Srikanta has complained about echo. Just let me know if everybody is facing that echo. You can just write if you can hear me clearly. Just write yes. I would understand that in the chat. All good, all good. Just join. Welcome. I can hear. Okay, awesome. Thanks, folks. So I think people who are facing a little bit of an echo, sorry about that, but request you to check at your end. And so I was talking about Interview Kickstart, right? So people who are from different tech domains will have customized upskilling because we do not believe in a straitjacketed approach. We don't believe that one program is going to serve every tech professional's needs. And some people are IC, some people are managers. So everybody has different needs. The secret sauce that we are able to do this with is our instructors. They belong to the best of the names, the logos that you can see at the bottom of your screen. All are from Mang Plus companies and high growth startups, and they are the ones actually in their day job scaling these AI systems in their companies, and they're hiring people like you or they're mentoring people like you, so they exactly know what is being asked for in the interviews and from these jobs nowadays. We already have seen success with about 27,000 of our alum learners, and you can see some stats in front of you about the compensation they were able to achieve. That is also because of the 200 plus hiring partner network that we have. So that's about us, about me. My job day in and day out past almost 5 years has been to talk to you and talk to hiring managers and try to bridge that gap, right? So when I talk to you, I come from a perspective of what your needs are and where you are in your skill and what is that skill gap, and what are the skills that employers are asking for. So I'm sort of like that bridge who's always listening to both sides of the story and trying to bridge you guys, right? So this is the secret sauce I already spoke about, and we are in luck because we have Parijat, who is one of our instructors. So you're going to get a sneak peek into how we teach in our structured programs, right? And our structured programs are obviously 3 to 6 months long, and there are different programs. I'll talk about that a little later. But I'm going to hand it over to Parijat now, who's the speaker of today. He's a lead data scientist at Microsoft. He has played a pivotal role in developing the Copilot desktop business, and he has been with Microsoft for almost a decade, like 11 years, it says on the slide also. See, he's done the session before. We got great response, and hence we are back with him doing this particular session. And he will take you through everything Claude Code today. So you can ask a lot of questions in the Q&A section, in the Q&A section and chat. I will be manning that, so I will prefer if you guys keep it to the Q&A section, so I'll be able to answer them well. And also Parijat is going to jump in and try to answer those questions. I'm going to launch the poll while I hand it over to Parijat. Parijat, welcome again. Nice to see you. And uh, over to you now. You can go ahead, share your screen.
Sure, Niyati. Let me just try the screen. I will share my full screen actually because I have to switch between code editor and the slide deck. And I hope you can see the screen, Niyati. Can you
Yes, we
confirm?
can see it in slideshow mode.
Awesome. Okay, great. So welcome all of you. Today we'll discuss a bit about Cloud Code and how it is reshaping careers, jobs, right? For engineers, for PMs, for engineering managers, and so on. And we'll talk about the context, and we'll take you through a brief demo around how you can use Cloud Code in day to day and how you can scaffold a end-to-end application right in Cloud Code itself. Okay, that's what we'll look at, and then we'll also see if we can like small bugs, how do we make changes, how do we build specs, and so on with Cloud Code, right? So essentially, this the software development life cycle that we are already aware of. Say the when we first get the requirements, right? Gather requirements, the functional stuff, the non-functional stuff, and so on. And then we'll go into the design, right? Generally, we talk about the design side of things, then we talk about implementation, then testing, and then finally deploying, right? So this kind of a timeline takes almost months, right? And then there is a handoff between from the product team to the development team, from the development team to the test team, right? And these kinds of handoffs also take time, also take like testing at each step, right? Validation at each step, and so on. Okay, so to avoid this kind of thing, we want to build something with AI such that the handoff time is minimized, right? Such that everybody can give their inputs initially itself with work with AI to build a like a proper product spec. And based on that, we can go about and build the end-to-end product. Okay, so that is the aim of Claude. And this today, what we'll discuss is not necessarily limited to anybody in tech, right? But if you are trying to be, say, trying to do a prototype and trying to do like make your life, your own life easier, right? You can always brainstorm with Cloud Code, try to build up something on your own and try to use it for yourself, right? It doesn't have to be something that ships or gets deployed also. Okay, so I'll just give you a general idea of how things work, but I'll just also show you basically what all things can be done with Cloud Code, right? So in terms of pain points, generally what happens is like we have the 60% of the time. Yeah, so we have like say like software engineers take a lot of time to like uh, set up code, right? There is a context like constant context switching that happens between the tools. uh, like sometimes product managers might not give all the requirements per se, right? In those cases we might need some time to translate vague specs into code, right? And then for product managers, the problem can be, it might be very difficult to understand the market, right? Validate the right set of ideas and so on. For TPMs, I think the main problem or the main nightmare is about budgeting time, right? What kind of estimates they might need, what kind of time a particular task might need, and so on, right? Because engineering velocity is unpredictable, people taking leaves are unpredictable, and so on, right? So it's very difficult to guess or gauge the amount of time the needed, right? And finally, for engineering managers, like you cannot you don't know, like, okay, this is the expertise you might need right now, right? And you might not have that person. Maybe you need an architect level expertise, you might not have that person at that moment of time, right? So the project cannot wait till you hire the right person. So in those cases, you can always brainstorm with AI and try to get the right set of skills in. Okay. So this is the AI augmented software development lifecycle. So with AI, how you can build things, right? So instead of the spec that takes weeks, you can build a spec in hours, right? In even a working prototype and a demoable thing in hours. Okay, that is the easiest thing to do. You can like capture concise requirements, needs. You can just give AI a brief idea about what you are looking for, and AI will build, like Claude in this case will build the spec for you, right? And this is not just with Claude, it can be with, say, Copilot, with Gemini, right? And all these things. But Claude Code and Copilot does very good work when, like, GitHub Copilot does very good work when we integrate with VS Code and when we look at like code generation steps. And that's where I'm talking about Claude specifically today. Okay, then obviously the implementation aspects, AI can do it properly based on the design and the requirements that you have given, right, in your spec. And finally the deployment, also Claude can also do the deployment for you. Okay, so we'll see today an end-to-end stuff for the AI augmented software development lifecycle, where we look at the how do we gather requirements, or how do we give the requirements to Claude, how it designs the spec for us, how do we implement based on the spec, and then how do we deploy, right? So deployments, as you would already know, we'll try to build a very small website, okay, which has like a lot of UI, which has a lot of features and so on, and we'll see how it can be done, right? So we are essentially doing the discussing the spec driven approach. So we'll try to build a spec with Claude, and then we'll try to use it to build a website and then finally deploy it. Okay, so this is all what we'll look at. And yeah, in terms of the like if you want to look at, like, I think nowadays all the things are like very much similar, right? Like in terms of like parse. But yeah, earlier we had like Copilot only trying to do, say, autocomplete stuff, code autocomplete stuff, and so on. But now we are seeing like all things have like good agentic capabilities, right? And so on. So everything is agent based. So it can read your whole code base, plan things, execute things, right? And it can also work with version control systems like, say, GitHub or Bitbucket, right? And these kinds of things. And then finally the deployment aspects, right? So deployment in, say, in terms of Vercel, or in terms of Azure, in terms of AWS, right, as EC2 instances, and so on. So deployment also can be done, reading the code base, figuring things out, right? Where there might be a bug, where there might be a design issue, those can be done, and so on, right? So these are the so that's where like we are now in the AI system. Okay. And like people like say, if you are new to AI, you might have heard about the term vibe coding, right? Vibe coding essentially means that, okay, you give a small snippet to the AI system, it generates you a small piece of code, or you tell, okay, I want to build something, it gives you some code, right? But the problem with that is it's very vague, right? We as humans, we often don't know what we actually need, so we'll give maybe a one liner or a two liner to the AI, which might not be very useful. Okay. And when we do it multiple number of times, the AI might lose context, right? The agent might lose the context that we are trying to do, right? So that's where it is always good to start with a structured spec, right? Start with something, a very concrete idea that you want to do, concrete UI idea that you want to have, right? And so on. Then you talk about, say, once you build that, you might reiterate, or you might brainstorm, and, oh, this is what change I want, this is what kind of a theme I want, right? This, say, I want authentication, I want, say, user profiles, right? User based website, and so on, like logging based website, and so on, right? So you have to do that brainstorming beforehand itself, before you just start coding directly. right? Because when you start coding directly, you have to make many iterations, and the moment you do many iterations, the AI gets confused, right? So that's what we'll try to do today. We'll try to discuss spec driven development. Okay. So we'll try to talk about, like, say, we'll try to brainstorm and build with AI a product spec. And then we'll talk about, how Cloud Code picks up that spec and then works on the code side of things, right? And then finally, how do we deploy? Okay. So this is what we'll cover today, right? So today we are talking about spec driven development, right? Yeah. So with this, I think with this, you will see that you are, like, the product management work can be done in hours, right? While boilerplate code you will directly get, so your software engineers will be much faster. Engineering managers can decide, okay, based on the prototype, is this shippable or not, or is this valuable for the company or not, right? Or is the idea validated or not? And TPMs, obviously, they can predict velocity. They can see that, okay, if I can build a small spec, like small demo by this weekend, then maybe it takes this much time, right? These are the features I want to have. This is the changes I want to make, and so on. So all these things, these how things get, how things become better with AI, right? So this slide basically tells how AI makes your life easier, right? So spec, I think there is a question in chat around whether spec contains both functional and non-functional requirements. So for those in tech, so functional requirements are basically those which are related to the functioning of the website, the features, right? And non-functional things are basically which we want to have, which should be there as a part of an application, like, say, reliability, right? Or say scalability, right? Or say concurrency handling, and so on, right? So generally, we try to handle the functional parts first. So today's discussion we'll do on the functional side of things, because we'll not build the server side things today. Okay, it's a client side, just the web page. But if you are building the server side thing also, right, the server code also, then yes, you should include the non-functional stuff also in the spec, right? That, okay, this should, say, scale to millions of users, or this should, like, say, work with AWS seamlessly, or this can be auto scaled with AWS infra, and so on, right? So that is where. And then also in terms of, like, say, testing, right, you should add the unit tests, right? Okay, these are the common failures, then what kind of unit tests that you want to have, and so on, right? But at the end of the day, spec is generally the product spec. When we talk about the spec, it is not the PRD. Okay, it's not the product requirement document kind of thing. It's more of the spec, product spec, in terms of the ideation and what all functional things I want to have, and that's where we are going into it. So yeah, Cloud Code is essentially a AI coding tool. Okay, so if you are not aware of it, so Cloud Code basically sits with your IDE, any IDE that you want to use, right? Visual Studio, VS Code, right? Any IDE that you want to use, you can have the Cloud Code plugin along with it, and there you can actually ideate. You can give context of the whole repo, and so on, right? So what I have for you, if you just see my um, uh, folder, right? Folder structure right now. Currently, I have nothing. Okay, I hope you can see my Visual Studio screen also, right? So this is the Visual Studio. This is a coding ID. So I don't have anything. I just have Cloud Code open, and Cloud Code I get from here. So I go to extensions, and in extensions, there is a Cloud Code for VS Code extension that is there by Anthropic, right? You can just install it. Okay. I already have it installed, and currently you can see here this is a wonder together kind of a project. I don't have anything in this yet. Okay, this is a fresh idea that I want to do, that I want to build with you, all of you. Okay, and this basically the idea is we want to build something like a travel app. Okay, travel website, right? The travel website Wonder Together that I'm calling it. It's like a social media for travel where you can, say, look for plan trips, look for trips, right? Somebody has gone to some place. You can see how their experiences were, right? Their photos, their updates, right? You can plan a trip together, right? You can meet similar people, and so on. Okay, so this is mainly for trips. This is what we want to build today, right? And the final result will show today. So there's a question in chat around how will the final result look like. So once we build it, you will see how the final result comes up, right? So we'll do the building completely from scratch, and that's where we have no code right now. On the left hand side, you can see it's completely empty, and we'll come back. We'll see as we build things up how it looks like. Okay, so yeah. So we'll try to build something like a Claude MD file, right? Which has like say all information about so it's kind of a text file itself. It's a markdown file, which has all information about the project, right? So that anyone can work with the project. They can pick up where say you are working in a team, right? You do something, you build something. So you say that, okay, summarize everything, keep in the Claude MD file. So the next person who picks it up knows. So they can just clone the repo and they can start from there, right? So Claude MD is the single place where Claude keeps all its knowledge base, right? You can also distribute it into different MD files and call it from Claude MD, right? So it's like a multi-redaction kind of thing. And then we'll look at the spec files, we'll build the spec together, and then we'll see how agentic loop works, right? How the execution happens, the verification happens, the test cases work, and so on. Okay. So let's now try to start writing the product spec. Okay, so we don't want to write a very garbage spec. We want to write a very precise spec, right? In terms of so that we can build something like a production quality system. Okay, so that's where like I'll just show you how these kinds of things I want to keep in the spec, like say the product overview, right? Who are the people, who is the product for, right? What are the core features? Okay, what is the tech stack, the data models, UI UX requirements, right? And the non-functional requirements that someone mentioned. We'll just keep it there. We'll see how much we can build in this 1 hour time, right? So we'll keep things like the core features, things like the tech stack, and things like the data model and the NFRs. Okay. So this is what we will look at today, right? So this is the exact spec that we will use. Okay, so create a spec for a React-based website. Again, React, you can give any tech you want, right? It doesn't have to be React. I just want to build a website which has the following user scenarios. So you have plan trips collaboratively, find and connect with other travelers, and build a product travel portfolio that tracks every journey, right? So the product overview is it's a like a collaborative travel wonder. We call it Wonder Together, right? We can give a different name also, but that combines say trip planning, companion matching, travel stories, right? Tech stack. I've given things what I am familiar with. You can give anything you want, right? You can take these are the feature modules that you want to have or the web pages that you want to have. Say I want to have a planning module, I want to have a matching module, like user matching module, right? I want to have a feed module like the stories and maybe something like explore. Okay, and then I have like say key entities are say users, trips, these things, and finally the UI structure, say some page sections, navigation, right, and so on. Okay, so this is kind of thing, and this is what we want to go into, right? So let me just copy this quickly. Okay, so I'll just copy this quickly and I'll put it in my Claude code. Right. So you can see my Claude code. I'll just pasting the whole thing, right? So I'm just making few modifications, like I'm writing create a spec document, right? I can just give called spec.txt in, or yeah, spec.docx also works. Docx and spec.txt. So I'm just here creating the document version of it so that I can show you in Microsoft Word, and I'm keeping a text version of it, right? So that I can keep it in the code base. You can just keep spec.docx, that is perfectly fine, right? Just keep one. So for good readability, for a React based website, which is the following user scenarios, you give the user scenarios, right? Product overview, you can call it Wonder Together. It's a collaborative travel platform, right? Combines trip planning, companion matching, travel stories, and so on. Okay. So the Claude MD is, yeah, we are not going into the Claude MD yet. We are just creating the spec first, right? Claude MD we can generate as we start building with the spec, right? Because that is the memory, or that is the core place where we'll define the architectures and so on, right? Uh, right. So this is what let's create it. So I'll just send it out. Ah, so, okay, I don't have a AI subscription in it. I think I was logged in. Let me just check. Let me quickly log into my subscription. Let me just see if I can. I thought I'm logged in. Oops, logged out, I think.
No problem. Parijat, till the time you're logging in, I'm just
Yeah.
would request participants to answer, sorry, put their questions in the Q&A section. The chat is a for other comments, you can do that. Q&A would be great because there I can answer your questions properly and not miss out on anything. Yeah, thanks.
Sure, I think I'll need 2 minutes time to log in, right?
Sure. No worries, no
So
worries.
yeah, if you want to talk about IK in that time, you can go ahead. But I just set it up. Not sure why I got logged out in the last minute. Just
No
yeah,
problem. So I'll take a few minutes more than
sure.
two. Is that okay? Like I can
Yeah,
go
please
ahead
go ahead.
and
Please go ahead. Yeah, let me just set it up.
awesome. So till the time Parijat is setting it up, I'm just going to come in a little early and talk to you guys. So just sharing my screen for reference. Let me know if you guys are able to see my screen. I hope it's visible.
Yeah,
Just
it's
a
just
little yes in the chat would be helpful. And I promise we'll get back to uh, the session as soon as possible. Just had a little bit of a login issue, but you're not going to see me after 10 minutes. So you're going to get back to the session quickly. So yeah, I've come in a little early. I generally come a little later because you're already 45 minutes into the session, and you've understood the need for the topic that we have picked up for the day, and you've also understood that while this is one topic, and you've asked questions to our instructor like Parijat, and I come in at a time when I also reveal what you guys posted in the poll, right? And I was going through your submission in the poll about what are your career goals? So most of you want to develop AI skills in your own domain, put that as a layer at the top of your what you're doing currently. So most of you are experienced tech professionals, right? So nobody wants to start from scratch. The second question is always interesting, which I like to ask is then what's stopping you from achieving that goal, right? And this time, about almost 79% of you said that the fact that you do not have a structured roadmap or a program to achieve those skills that you need now are table stakes. You don't know how to go about it. So that's why I've come in, right? And when we are starting off, when we are starting off our upskilling journey, most of our learners fall in these four boxes, and they quickly, once they join the program, they quickly move out of them, right? But you might feel that AI is moving too fast, there's so much to catch up on, or there's so much material out there. uh, a lot of our learners also say that hey, there's YouTube videos they can go through, but they're all unstructured, and then they come back to us after a few weeks or a couple of months of trying that, because that does not really, unfortunately, that may help you understand one particular concept, but it does not help you develop a very substantial dent on your career, right? For that, you do need a structured, uh, like a program. And better yet, what we have realized, you need a customized roadmap for your domain or a program for your domain. You may now people don't feel that the third one, that my job is very secure and it cannot be touched by AI, and that's not the case anymore. And most of you, like I was talking about, most of you are senior tech professionals. You may feel that, do I need to start from scratch? You might be, seeing some of the uh, junior folks or lesser experienced folks in your teams kind of talking about AI all day, and you may feel that, okay, am I a little behind? Do I need to start from scratch? You do not need to start from scratch. You exactly need to start from where you are, but you need to start. That's the whole point. So if you, and why do I say that you need to start is, if you see the whole journey of the AI up leveling curve, the first couple of years was all about increasing our productivity. And even today we use that, right? Vibe coding, as Parijat was talking about, or code reviews, all of that using copilots and LLMs we have been doing for a couple of years now. But now we have officially and properly entered the phase of these step 3, 4, and 5, where we are using AI in order to transform and build complex enterprise use cases. Okay, so now 2025 was all about doing POCs, and a lot of you would understand what I'm talking about. That you do a POC project, great, you are appreciated. But now it's 2026 and beyond is going to be about, hey, can you put that to production? Does it survive production environment, right? And that's when a lot of our learners, when they came back with the feedback, and we try to understand that, hey, why did you in the first place take up this program? They said these things, and that's why I'm using their lines verbatim, because you would be able to relate to that. It's coming from people like you. So then what we came up with were the three programs, the three boxes that you see in front of you, the three programs for exactly, and they solve very, very specific, distinct things. Number one, this is the one that most of you would relate to also in the first go, is the transformative Gen AI and Agentic AI plus Interview Lab program. Now, if you are an SWE, or you are a data scientist or an engineering manager, TPM, whatever, you want to layer your years of experience and your domain with AI skills, this is the program for you. We start with foundations of agentic AI, and we actually start with a consultation with you. We try to understand your profile better to then suggest the best path forward. And that path could most of the times is with us, sometimes is not with us. And we understand that absolutely. So you layer your domain, or you layer your skills with AI, the skills that are AI skills that are important for your domain. And then also, because we are outcome focused, we spend equal amount of time, 3 months in AI upskilling and 3 months in interview preparation, taking you through DSA concepts, system design concepts. These things, they may feel that, who asks DSA nowadays, but there are companies and there are candidates who unfortunately do not get through because of that one or two DSA question that may be asked in interviews, right? Then I'll also cover what we cover in the interview prep part. The second program, sorry, transformative, I was on transformative Gen AI. We offer that in pro code, low code, and no code. So you may be coming from software engineering background. So we'll give you the pro code version of that. So while there is domain customization, there is also coding level customization. Pro code for software engineers or data engineers, then low code for some of the tech profiles who would want to go ahead with that. No code for, say, a product manager or a data analyst or a business analyst, right? The coverage of the concepts is exactly the same across these three tracks. It's just the way we teach you is different. So for no code, I'll be using N8N workflows to visualize, or and for pro code it would be different, but the coverage of concepts would be the same. The second program is the PwC and a PwC India and Interview Kickstart program, which is the Agentic AI Accelerator and Interview Lab. Now, this is for people who are already pro code. Okay, so you are proficient in coding. You already have certain level of AI knowledge. Now you just want to do enterprise level projects so that you get an industry certificate that is given by PwC India and Interview Kickstart, so that you can signal to your recruiters or your managers that, hey, I'm not just proficient in coding and AI skills. I've also done enterprise level projects. And these are projects that PwC India has given us as industry use cases that they have seen, right? The third is the newest entrant, and some of you would have heard about it. Some of you are intrigued about it, and I would want to know that in the chat. The Forward Deployed AI Engineering Program. Now, this is for people who want to, specifically engineers, okay, pro code engineers who want to transition into FDE roles. You would be hearing this already. This has come up in India. There are already hundreds of jobs available by biggest of the names, Google, even startups like Meesho and all, even consultancies like BCG, KPMG, they are offering FDE roles, right? Now, what is an FDE role? The base is AI engineering. So whatever we are covering in transformative Gen AI and agentic AI program, that is the base. And then we have dedicated track on FDE in that program. Plus, because it's a transformation program, transition program, we also help you prepare for interviews and crack those FDE roles. Okay, so that's the advantage. These are the three programs available. You want to understand more? I've put a link of you can reach out to a program expert, set up a one-on-one at a convenient time for yourself, and understand whether these programs are meant for you or not, right? So that's one. These are the 18 tracks we cater to, and you can see the amount of detailing, the amount of customization we offer you, as well as the pro code, no code, low code in the transformative Gen AI program, right? Now you'd ask, what do we cover in the 3 months of interview lab that I spoke about, right? We give you 15 mock interview opportunities with our instructors who are actually, like I was saying, the hiring managers, the people who are actually scaling, building AI systems in companies like Google, Netflix, Amazon, Microsoft, etc. People like Parijat, who's our speaker for today, right? And 15 opportunities are enough for you to perfect your interview giving skills, right? And then apart from that, we also understand you need to optimize your LinkedIn. You need to signal right to the recruiters, right? You need to update and optimize your resume. You need to be ready with offer negotiation or salary negotiation rounds, behavior strategies for those behavioral rounds that are going to test that. And like I was saying, we also spend a lot of time on DSA, system design, and specific domain interview modules that are different for these 18 domains that I spoke about. Right? Example I've given, like for EMs, there is a special leadership module that we go through. Apart from that, if you successfully complete our programs, we also do performance-based referrals. So via instructors, via our 200 plus hiring partner network. So we also put you forth in front of wherever there is a role available. And if you are, you are eligible for that, we put you across that too. So this is what I was talking about. We share about 250 roles, uh, 250 profiles with our recruiters on a quarter basis, and our learners have seen about 5 to 7x return on investment on the program fee. Now, talking about the program fee, this is firstly, I'll talk about the timelines. The PwC program on Agentic AI Accelerator and Interview Lab takes about 12 weeks of the 12 weeks is just portfolio building via the enterprise level projects and 3 months of interview lab. The second one, and if you're unsure, just start with this. This is where you'll find all of the AI and interview preparation domain customization. And this one is for 3 plus 3 months, as you can understand, 3 months of AI upleveling, 3 months of interview preparation. The forward deployed AI engineering program, this is a very specific program to transition into an FD role. This is for about 6 months. Now, the pricing. The pricing for the first one is the PwC program, which I spoke about, is 2 to 2.8 lakhs because we offer it as per the domain that you come from. The transformative Gen AI and Agentic AI lab and interview lab is 1.5 to 2.8 lakhs. The forward deployed engineering program is for 2.75 lakhs. All of them, obviously, we offer you EMI options because all of our learners, they have minimum to minimum 8 years experience, 5 years experience, right? So all of them obviously have other responsibilities too. We totally understand that. We can break it down to EMIs that you're comfortable with. But if if these programs are not something that work out for you, I would highly request you to definitely invest in your upskilling because that's the need of the hour now. And if you think from whatever I've spoken, it resonates with you, go ahead, book a slot with us. I'll share the link again and talk to us, like have a chat that doesn't cost anything, right? We also have a 50% refund policy and a 14-day trial. And you can talk to your program advisor for more details because there are certain terms and conditions attached to that. So without further ado, now thanks Parijat for letting me speak a little early, but I'm going to hand it over to you. Hope the issue is solved by now
Yes,
and
yes.
you'll be able to take
Yeah,
the audience through the rest of the part.
sure, sure. Thank you, Niyati, for covering. Yeah, I think some last moment issue. I'm not sure what
No worries.
happened. And
All good.
yeah, I think I
Thanks.
was logged out. Yeah, so I'm back. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So thanks, Niyati. Let's then move ahead with the spec-driven development part, right? And let's talk about it. So you see here, this is the spec that I had given, and now things will work fine. So let's copy this up and So I basically logged in. So basically the thing is that Claude Code needs a paid subscription with Anthropic, right? So if you see here, right, so I just logged in and created my own subscription. Okay. If you already have a subscription, great. So if you look at Claude Code, um, right, so you will see that the Claude chatbot that is there, right? The chatbot is free, but Claude Code is a paid subscription, right? I think monthly it is $20 based on my latest purchase today, and yeah, and that is how it is. In if you take a yearly plan, I think it is around $15 to $16. Okay. So that's what it is. And yeah, let's go back to Claude and now paste the spec details that we were thinking about, right? So we are creating a spec document. So going back to what we were talking about, so we are talking about the Wander Together spec, right? The Wander Together application and the website, where we want to plan trips collaboratively, find and connect with other travelers and so on, right? So this is what we want to build. Okay. You can see here it will create a it is saying that, okay, I'll create a comprehensive spec document for your Wander Together platform. Let me generate a professional docx file with all the requirements that you have, like all the details you have outlined, right? So it is creating the spec doc, right? So while it is creating things, let me take a look at the questions, if any. Yeah. So I have not created a repo yet. As you can see, I think there is a question on what is the repo name. There is no repo yet. Okay. It's just a Wander Together application that we are trying to create. Once we create things, then you will see I'll push things to GitHub, right? Connect to Git and so on. Okay. You can also create a PRD. That's perfectly fine. I prefer creating a spec doc first because then I can brainstorm and change things if I want to, right? Because that majorly has the functional things, right? And that's what we want to build, right? The free there is another question on the free version of Claude. So the free version of Claude helps you only chat. Okay, you can create the spec also in the chat, and then you can use it into Claude Code. But because this session we want to work with Claude Code to generate the code also, so that's where we need a paid version for Claude. Okay. So it is creating the spec doc, right? You can see it is just creating the like it is asking for like few permissions, right? Few Python libraries that it wants to use to create a good looking spec doc, right? So we'll always allow things, right? Unless, okay. Any other questions in the meantime? You can create a specs MD file. You can create a specs txt file. I think there's a question from Sahil around why not a specs MD. I just wanted to show you in Word document how it looks like. That's where I created a docx file, right? Because spec documents are something that you should be able to share with non-technical folks also, right? It doesn't have to be a very boring looking file. It should have tables, it should have timelines, right? And so on. So you should be able to, it should be a collaborative document at the end of the day, right? It should not just live in the repository. Okay, it's a spec file. So you will need, like, say, inputs from product managers. You will need input from your like, say, the engineering managers and so on, right? So those things will be there. Okay. Right. So it is basically just running and just seeing whether the spec that it has created is looking well or not, kind of things you can see here. Okay. So it has, you can see here a spec document created successfully, and then it will just show the file. It has created the spec document here. You can see, right? This is the spec doc that got created here. I'll just show how it looks like. Okay. It is adding the document contents now. So executive summary, a product overview, right? User scenarios, tech stack, core feature modules, the data model, the UI structures, and so on, right? You can change anything that you want to. Okay. You can change anything you want to. So let's go into the spec doc, right? So I'll open it in Word. So I'll go to my uh, the folder that I have created for today's discussion. So this is the spec doc that just got created 8:13, as you can see. So let's open in Word doc, right? Sometimes Claude has some issues with docx, some formatting issues, but mostly it works well. Okay. So this is the spec document that you can see that just got created, right? I'll just show you the level of completeness here, right? And I'm just using Claude Code. So there's a question in chat around, is this Claude Code work? This is just Claude Code. Okay, so you can see what is the vision of the app, right? What is the executive summary? So the vision is to make collaborative travel planning seamless, social, and memorable by connecting travelers with shared interests and enabling them to document and share their adventures, right? You can add and change things also if you want to, right? If this is not what you want or something additional you want, you can always add things, right? This is a document that is already created. And as you can see, this document is so complete that this might take a week for a week or two for the engineering team or the product team to come up with, right? So all these things are created. So what are the core feature modules? You have a planning module, right? Like trip creation, accommodation and management, real-time collaboration, export options, and so on. You have the matching module, you have the stories module, right? And so on. Then the data, individual data tables, how they would look like, right? What are the primary keys? What are the foreign keys? How they are connected, and so on. And then you would have, like, say, relationships, right? User trips, itineraries, one to many to many kind of things. Okay, how the UI would look like. You can always change the UI structures. Okay, these are hex codes. You can change them, or you can tell Claude to change it for you, right? You can change them. You can say, what are my landing sections? So it has already given you a very good idea about how things look like, right? And responsive design, future enhancements, what it wants, and so on, right? So this is pretty complete. So I don't want to make any changes to this. I'll say start scaffolding. Okay, so let's go back. So this spec is already built. So this is the spec, right? And where were we in our code side? Let me just find our demo. Yeah. So this is the spec that so like Claude creates the spec for us, and now we want to go into the project skeleton, right? We want to build the project skeleton. Okay. Obviously, you can see that spec would have taken a week or two, right? So it took hardly, for me, it took hardly 2 minutes, right? I started at 8:13 after the login issues and everything. By 8:16, we are done, right? So I'll now tell Claude to scaffold the project structure for me, right? Based on the spec, now define the project structure, how it will look like, right? Build the folders, build the files, and so on. Okay. So this is what we will do. So these kinds of file structures you will see will get created. Okay. And that's what we'll do now, right? So let's go back to Claude. Right. So this is the spec that is already created. So I go back to Claude Code, right? So this is my current version of Claude Code. So I say create a project structure based on the spec file, right? Uh, yeah, create proper folders and Claude.md file based on the uh, requirements, the spec file, right? So create proper folders, folder structure, right? And a Claude MD file based on the requirements in the spec file, right? Both the sentences are very similar, so let's have just one line, right? And we can say just proceed. Okay. Note that, yeah, I didn't need to make any changes in the spec. When you are obviously working in a collaborative environment, your engineering manager might have some inputs, the product team might have some inputs, right? So all those things. So you can see here, Claude wants to create these directories for me, right? The front end directories, the back end directories, the source, the database, the models, the middlewares, right? You can see these things are there, right? So let's allow it to create these. Okay. And you can see all these gets created on the left hand side, right? You can see on the left hand side of the screen everything gets created. So the fonts, the icons, the images, they are currently empty, right? But you will soon see that things will get populated. Okay, you can see here the configuration, the database, the middleware, the models, they are all empty right now, but things are now getting created one by one. Okay, the tests, the unit tests, the integration tests, the database layers, and so on, right? So let it get created. You can see here it is just creating things one by one, right? So I think there's a common theme. One common question is that, oh, how do I do it? How do I work with Claude in an existing database? In the existing database also, when you have Claude, you will have the Claude MD file, you will have the other MD files, right? Or you can tell that this is the aim of this database, right? This is the aim of this code base. These are my key areas. These are my entry points. And then can you generate the Claude MD for me and so on, right? So in those cases, you can build that whole thing altogether, right? Yeah. So the last prompt that I added, I just said just add a MD file for me, right? So there's a question from Kaushal around, was the last prompt part of the spec doc? I just created the prompt, right? So I just said create proper folder structure and Claude MD file based on the requirements in the spec file. You have the spec file, right? So it is creating everything else. So you can see the Claude MD file is created now, right? So this is the Claude MD file is created now. Okay. So the Claude MD file basically has all these things on the right hand side, as you can see, right? So what is the product specification? What is the aim? What is the tech stack? What is the project structure, right? What are your like authentication methods? What does each module do and so on? Okay. What does each file does? What does each API does? Everything is there in the Claude MD file. Okay. README, they generally Claude creates it so that anyone can set things up, right? If you push this to GitHub repo tomorrow, how to set things up, how do you set the front end, how should you set the back end, everything is there in the README file. Okay. So the NPM steps, the node steps, the package manager steps, and so on, right? You can always, as usual, modify things if you want to. But yeah, so that is the basic things, right? Yeah. So I think Geeta has mentioned that she did not receive a formatted document. So Geeta, in that case, you have to tell that create a docx file, right? If you tell create a txt file, or if you don't specify something, then Claude by default will try to create a MD file or a txt file for you, and txt files are never formatted, right? So if you say create a docx file, then it will use the docx skill and create the docx file for you, which is properly formatted, right? Yeah, Claude MD gets updated automatically whenever you make changes, right? If there are big architectural changes, Claude MD files get updated automatically, right? Right. And then it will also create a summary document for you. These are the changes that I've made, and this is what I have kept, kind of things, right? So it is creating that for me. Okay. So now you should be able to see some of the files getting created, right? So Vaibhav was asked a question around whether Claude is setting up the front end, back end, etc., based on UI or folders. It will do it based on the UI, right? The folder structure also we have not given it. It is only suggesting us what to use based on the spec that we have. Okay, so that's where like we are not doing anything here. Right? So we are just using Claude Code. Even the spec also that we created was directly through Claude Code, and yeah, what we are trying to build. So you can see here the project is now fully structured and documented, ready for development to begin. So it has given all the structures properly, right? You can see it has given all the structures properly. If you want to make any changes, right? If you're architect or if you're the principals, right, or EM wants to make any changes, you can do now only, right? The folders, because the files are not created yet, the dependencies are not created yet. So you can do that, right? Now you can say create the files. I had mentioned create the folder structure, right? Create the files based on the create the internal files based on the folder structures, right? Structure and the spec doc to create a deployable Wonder Together website. To create a website also you can present, because right, because Wonder Together it already knows, right? So create the internal files based on the folder structure and the spec doc or Claude MD, whatever you want to give, and it will create it for you. Okay. So now the individual files get created. You can do it in one step, right? I prefer to do like general recommendation is to do it in multiple steps by Anthropic, by Claude, or by any of the AI agentic systems, because that way you can make any changes, right? I want to keep things as modular as possible. So then you can make any changes, right? You can see here the main.jxs gets created, right? It says that, okay, it will deploy it in localhost somewhere. I saw it, yeah, this localhost apis, right, and so on. So things are now getting created, right? These are the individual files that are getting created, the front end files. Okay, so if you see, the front end files are getting created one by one, right? So these many folder structures are already created for you, right? And I think inside the state, yeah, the js files are now getting created, right? You can see here the math.slice.js file, all the code getting created one by one. Okay, this is proper uh, React code, all the files that are getting created, right? It is creating the front end first, and then based on the front end requirements, it will create the back end and the APIs and so on, right? So today we are looking at just scaffolding an AI, like a website, and it will become a large project. And there's a questions around whether these are scalable for large projects. Definitely, okay. These are scalable, and this is how things are built from scratch, right? So we are doing the 0 to 1 part, and we'll have other workshops. I'll talk a bit about it towards the end also, about how to do it from 1 to 100, right? So 0 to 1 is the most important part. That is the spec driven development part, and then we'll also look at, like, say, if there's a bug in an existing system, how do you solve it? If there is a problem, how do you move it, right? If there is a modification later, how do you do changes, right? Or if you want to add service side things, say you had a sync process, you want to make it asynchronous, how do you add a queue, how do you add a cache, and all these things, right? So those kinds of infrastructure changes, for that I'll say Azure, like, or AWS plugin kind of thing, right? And so on. So all those things we'll talk about in due course of time. Okay, so, right, so you can always ideate, like, I think there are questions around, like, okay, if I want to solve something in, like, a real burning issue in the real world, right? How do I do it? So all those, like, these kinds of, you can always ideate with AI, right? For that I'll use just the free version of Claude, right? In terms of what are the real problems, what kind of cost benefit analysis is there, and so on, right? And once I figure out, okay, this is what I want to actually go about and work, then I'll come to Cloud Code, ideates, build a spec, and then start working, right? So I'm just showing you a generic use case, but this is also a very good problem to solve, though, right? This is actually not a very well properly solved problem in terms of having a social media for trips alone, right? Understanding, because generally what we nowadays do is we look at Instagram for people going into that area. We might go to Make My Trip and then book tickets. We might go to Skyscanner, find the cheapest flights. We might go to Airbnb, find the best accommodations, and so on. But if you want to have together in one place, right, an aggregator kind of thing, a visualizer, a storytelling website kind of thing, I think this is a very, very good problem to solve, right? Yeah. So I think, yeah, Rizwan has a very good question around, like, if want to make the code base completely cloud agnostic, how do I do it, right? So you mentioned that, right? You say that, okay, this is what I want to deploy in localhost now. Tomorrow, if I want to deploy in AWS or Azure, how do I keep things separate, and how do I keep the modules separate, right? So while you are building the folder structure, you can say that I want to have a front end, back end, and I want to have a deployment related website separately, deployment related folder separately. Okay, and Claude will build it for you, right? So these kinds of prompts, these kinds of specific informations you should be giving to Claude. Okay, yeah, right. Validations, for validations, you will have the tests, right? We already have tests, so it doesn't have to be a like a standard template kind of thing. So you will always have the tests and so on. So for which for Claude will validate things for you. And you can change the models also, right? I did not talk about models. I think there was a question around what model am I using. I think by default it uses the cheapest one, but you can change it, right? So say I want to do a very specific high-end thing. Say I want to add Google Auth, right? Google based auth. which is not a very straightforward thing. It might have to look at documentation, figure out the latest things, or maybe I'll have to go create a key somewhere or a secret somewhere, use it, right? So for those cases, I might use the higher end models, right? So you can change the models whenever you want to. Okay. And you can see here, this is the context, right? So how much of the current information do you want to keep, right? And so on. So you see this number will slowly decrease, right? So that means that, okay, the memory is getting full for Claude, right? So I can say that, okay, I'll click to make it compact, right? I might discard some useless information. It will automatically discard some of the low priority information, right? Only keep the high priority information and so on. Okay. And you can see some of the command menu, right? So here you can see the switch model option, right? So you can change it, it will switch the model, right? I think I'm using the, as I said, I'm using the cheapest one that I think, yeah, for fastest, I'm using the fastest one, sorry. You can use Sonnet 5, you can use Opus, you can use Fable, anything you want to, right? This is for Claude only. If you use GitHub Copilot, right, you can use any of the models that are there, right? Claude. If you're using Claude, you only get the models from Anthropic. If you use GitHub Copilot, you get it's a orchestration, right? You have agents from everywhere. You have Gemini, you have Copilot, you have OpenAI, GPT, and so on. Okay. Yeah, so yeah, compaction. I think there's an interesting question on how do I know if something important has been removed, right? When you compact the memory, it's difficult to know that, right? And that's where like all the systems are trying to do that. So we'll try to see if there anything got changed in the Claude MD file or not to make sure about that, right? But generally, context only the memory amount, the actual files don't get changed, right? Just the memory, whatever thing is there in the memory that gets compact. Okay. So that is the right. You can have like separate MD files. You can redirect, right, so that you can have like multiple memory things and so on. Okay. Um, yeah, mostly if you're working from day to day, Sonnet is pretty good for work. If you're doing, as I said, something very complex, like say authentication or some concurrency issue or some threading issue that you are not able to figure out, right? You can give some logs and say that analyze these logs, figure out if there is a race condition somewhere and so on. So in those cases, you might use Opus or Fable, the higher end models, right? They are more expensive. They will eat your tokens faster, right? So they are more expensive, and yeah, so that is one thing. Okay. So these all files it has created. So I'll just say yes, make the changes, right? I generally take a cursory look at what the changes are and then say, yeah, please go ahead and make the changes, right? Okay. So while it builds everything, so you can see the backend is now starting to get built, I'll assume. No, not yet. Where are we? Um, Yeah, the Docker file. So the Docker and everything, the deployment. You can always change stuff. Okay. So you can see here the deployment MD file that is there. It has a like maybe a localhost setup kind of thing right now, right? You can say that, okay, I want change the deployment to say point to AWS. This is my service, this is my subscription, right? Or you have the Azure things here. So you can say that I want to deploy to Azure in this subscription and so on. Okay. You can create CI/CD pipelines also. Gaurav has a question around can I automate engineering pipelines, builds, you can do that. Yes, right. And nowadays, a lot of these built infrastructure like say, Azure DevOps and these things are coming in with built-in CI/CD support, right? Built-in engineering support and so on. So definitely you can do that. Yeah, current request in the middle also you can say you want to go with like the like, compact and so on. That doesn't really matter. It runs in a different thread. So it will not immediately impact your current thinking and current file generations and so on. Okay. you can look at the different files that are there, right? So you can actually read upon, so what is the quick start, what is the Claude MD file, what does it have, right? What is the deployment MD file? So it has given AWS cloud development. You can always tell, give me Azure cloud development things and so on. So there's a question around, can you explain the MD files once? So that's what, okay. So these are the different MD files, and Claude will generate the start here MD for you, which has a summary of all the MD files that are there, right? You can look at the quick start MD file, you can install stuff and so on accordingly. So I'll just hover around this a bit. It will Claude builds everything for me. So the left panel, I created a folder initially and then used it, right, Geeta? So if you're trying it out, it was just an empty folder that I opened. I just did open folder here, pointed to that empty folder, and then started the work. So if you have that, you will be able to see all the files here. Yeah. Yeah, here I'm not talking about like a lot of the multi-agent things, right? We are just using Claude Code to build the web page. Okay, so I think our web page is ready. So the files are ready, 100 plus files created, lines of code, right? Documentation, directories changed, and so on, right? We don't have a service yet, so the backend files are more or less empty. We have everything in the front end right now because we are building a POC, right? You can see here all the files that get created, right? The hooks, the pages, right? The auth, the dashboard, the explore, the matching, right? All these JS files get created, okay, right? And obviously, yeah. So if you go about and can you run the? I'll just say, can you? I'll just use very layman terms. Maybe just say that. Can you show how the website looks like in localhost, right? So I'm just saying, just show me the website, how it looks in localhost, right? So create me a very small link that works, right? So it will essentially, what will try to do, it will spin up a local server, just serve that pages, those pages, and so on. Okay. So it is saying now, let me install dependencies and start the servers, right? So all the server side things also it can do. That was the main point of showing this, and it will ask for your permission. If you say that no, I won't allow it, I want to do it manually, and so on, you can definitely do it manually, right? Okay. Yeah, one saving context, you can always do compact, right? You can also specifically say that, okay, look at only this MD file and do these steps and so on. Obviously, you might get a quality hit, but you will definitely save on cost, right? We have not created databases right now. This is a POC, so we just have the front end, but we have the database folder here, right? So based on your requirements, if you want to have a SQL DB, a NoSQL DB, right? Or if you have something deployed in AWS that you want to use, you can always use that, right? Yeah. So we generally try to do, if you are trying to think of a full stack thing, first you build the spec. Like the idea should be this, you should build the spec first, then you think of the front end, obviously how it will look like, right? If you want to show a POC to someone, they don't care about the backend, right? And then you build the backend. When you build the backend, you think about the non-functional things, the scale, the reliability, the security, and all these things, right? Okay. Yeah, so kind of a divide and conquer thing. If you want to also spend less tokens, you can. Yeah, that's what I tried to do quickly, right? I build the spec, then I want and I told just build the folder structure, then I verified things, then I said just build the files and so on, right? So yeah, it is kind of dividing and conquering, right? Yeah, the hallucination. Yeah, I think the shipped models have lesser of that, right? If you have small repos, you won't face a lot of hallucination unless the type of problems you are solving is very complex. In those cases, if you're thinking about hallucination and how to avoid it, I'll say give more crisper prompts, right? Maybe give the chain of thought prompting kind of thing, right? Tell that, oh, this is what I want to do. Then you should look at this file, this is the flow, and so on, right? Make things as explicit as possible so that it reduces like the agent reduces any kind of like say exploring or imagining kind of things, right? Yeah, you can use Claude in cloud AI based apps also. I think Saurabh is a question. Yeah, you can use in MS Foundry also. Copilot I think has where you can change the models and so on, so you can definitely use it. Okay. Yeah, skills we are not talking about today, right? Skills are just basically telling systems how to do things, right? So I think there's a question from Ali, but skills, I think it takes a bit more time to explain, and we don't have that luxury today. But skills are essentially, just to give an idea about it, skills are like very specific, focused things that we look at. So if you are into full stack development, you can look at like online skills that people have built. Okay, so there is a very good uh, I'll say a package that is there where you have a lot of these skills available, right? You can just search for BMAD. So BMAD has those, okay, uh, the skills that are already available. So you can take a look at that. Uh, yeah. So you have the product designer skills, the UI skills, right? The manager skills, the analytic skills, and so on. Okay, so you have a lot of those skills there, right? So BMAT is basically like it helps you scaffold websites again, right? Like we are doing it from spec, you can do it using skills there, right? So you can explore this if you want to, but that is for another day. Okay. Yeah, so you don't, yeah, it is not necessary that my website and your website will look the same, right? I think Manisha had that question, but yeah, while that is true, but still you can give explicit information, explicit like instructions that, okay, this is what I want, this is what I don't want, and so on, right? You can change the spec accordingly and so on. So all those things you can work with. Okay, you can change the spec accordingly to answer to solve those problems. Right? Okay. Databases, you can clearly tell Claude that, okay, I don't want to use MySQL. My database is saying AWS. This is the subscription. This is the connectivity connection link. This is the secret, and then you can work with that. Okay, just make sure that you are not using secrets directly in code. You are keeping secrets somewhere in a key vault and just using the link in code to work with it. Right, that will help you implement the security steps. Right, other like basic security stuff like say your course requests, SQL injections, those kinds of things are mostly handled. Okay, if you use if you deploy it in AWS or Azure, it will also be like your firewalls and so on will also be handled accordingly, right, by the cloud yeah, only. Right? So I think yeah, Sumant had asked the question around like what is the recommended workflow after the spec. So that's what we are trying to do, Sumant. So we build the spec. Based on that, we are building the front end, right? Then we'll show to others if they see value in that. Then we will say that okay, now I go back, think about the back end, right? I talk about the non-functional requirements. What is my scale? What is my infra, right? Whether I have AWS, whether I have Azure. I do a cost benefit analysis, right? What is the deployment cost, right? If I have a million concurrent users, will my website remain or not, or will that get crash? Will it crash? So things like that, and that are the next steps, right? Obviously, we'll need a bit more iterations on top of everything, right? Okay, this is not working. How do I fix this? Or basically fix this for me. Or say Google Auth has say they have changed some way in which you are authenticating the internal way, say what to something else. How do I fix that, and so on, right? Okay. can see here the files are getting created in terms of the package files, right? Because it has to be deployed in a as a node package. Yeah, if you want to deploy things also in Azure or AWS, your this folder gets filled, right? So you have a deployment folder here somewhere, not the folder, but you have the deployment MD file, right? So you can properly tell that how you. So this is a Docker based deployment. You can see, right? If you have a Kubernetes based thing, or if you have a, so we have the front end and back end here, right? Database here. But if you need more like if you want different things, right? Say instead of S3 you want to use Azure blobs, instead of say like your say a sync processor you want to use a sync like a queue kind of thing, you can also build them separately in AWS and just put the links up here, right? Or you can say that I want to integrate it with AWS as I go forward, right? In those cases, you will just need to use the AWS or the Azure extensions that are here, log in into your subscription so that Claude can seamlessly work with it. Okay. So that's how this deployment, this has everything around deployments, right? So you will be able to look at with the deployment MD files. Okay. Yeah, we are using Claude AI, yeah, Claude Agent to work on things. So we don't need to create a Claude folder, right, Manisha? It's not necessary. I generally try to have a Claude MD at least, right? So this has more or less, as you can see on the right hand side, this has all the information about the projects, right? So I will not try to have a Claude folder separately, right? You can have it, but yeah, the Claude MD file itself, you can like it will redirect to the other MD files if needed, and so on, right? Usage based things, yeah, right. And if you need anything specific, right, in terms of say, oh, have I, how much keys I have, how much tokens I have left, and so on, you can always use, you can do slash, you will see all the things, all the commands here, right? And you can look at like what the usage and so on. Yeah, see, you can see here usage, how much usage is left, and so on. So you can see only 10% you have used till now, right? In the weekly last 7 days, you have 70%, 17% used kind of things. Okay. So you can try to explore, just give a slash here and you will see all the commands coming up, right? And you can try to look at them. Okay. Yeah, so I think there's a common question around why do you create a docx file? So I created a docx file because it is easy to read in Word, right? People can comment, you get the both of best of both worlds, right? You can always create a spec.md file, you can always create a spec.txt file, right? In those cases, you will not see like it's not well rendered, right? And so on, readability issues, nothing else. Okay. So you can see here, it is saying this is the port in which things will work, right? The front end is the back end and so on. Let's try to see if it opens or if something is an issue. Oh, failed to load. Let's see what is the issue. We can always tell that this is failing to load, fix it for me kind of thing, right? So you can always tell that this is not loading kind of thing, right? I'm using as much layman terms as possible, right? And so that like you can also use these terms as you move forward. Um, I don't. You can go here also and then try to paste it and see is working here or not. Yeah, it's not working. Let's see the fixes and so on. It will if you give these kinds of fixes, right? It can always go into the code. It should see, oh, what failed in my node package, right? What was an issue and so on, right? So definitely. Right? So it said that the front end server is not running. Let me start it for you and check what's happening. So it is trying to deploy it, right? Starting to deploy the front end server and trying to see. So these kinds of things, like though it used to take say 1 day to debug, right? Figure things out. So figuring basic things out is now very simple. Okay, so that is the end goal, right? So for those who joined late, I think there was a question on how the prompt files got created, the MD files. Yes, I gave a prompt saying that, okay, build the folder structure, create the cloud MD and things like that. And it created the remaining MD files also for deliverables deployment. I did not give a separate prompt. It figuring out and gives it. Okay. Right. So you can always compact things if you want to. Okay. Right. And then in terms of like say once you visualize things, you can always say that connect to GitHub, right? So then it will open a pop-up for GitHub. You will log in and you can connect to GitHub code, right? You can say that deploy is a Vercel app, right? Vercel is a very, very easy way of deployments, a website deployment. So you can say that deploy in a Vercel app. So it will import the Vercel package. So you don't have to install Vercel yourself, right? It will download Vercel for you and it will try to deploy it as a Vercel website, right? As a static Vercel website and so on. Okay. So it is saying the front end is starting in the background. Let me check the output, right? So it is in that. So it is saying the front end server is now running successfully. Let me start the back end. All these things, right? So yeah, the aim of today's session is just to show like it is very like how Claude is very powerful and think of this, right? Yeah, and Claude is pretty good in building POCs, right? If you want to show it, obviously, if you have scale challenges and so on, you have to apply your engineering things and in these engineering knowledge, trading knowledge, and so on. But for basic stuff for POCs, Claude is very very good. Okay. Ah, it's working now. So you see here, it's working now, right? The front end is working. So let's go to our local host. You can see here, right? How Wander Together works, plan trips, find companions, share stories, right? Create account, plan a trip, find companions, document and share, trusted by travelers, right? There are even uh, uh, testimonials by travelers and so on, right? When you create start your journey today, you have a creating a account, this thing register, right? You can go back, you can say get started free, it will take you here, right? And you can go inside and look at the individual things and so on, right? So you can look at the explore page, right? It will show you, okay, what is some routes, something, there are bugs, as you can see, right? The explore is not working, this not working. So you go back to Claude and say that, okay, this is not working, how do I fix it for me and so on, right? So individual things you test and fix these things, right? Even for like complex things like say Razor Pay payment integration, right? Or if you want to have like Google Auth, right? You can add those complexities also, right? It is just about you giving the right information. This is the link, this is your payment, this is the key, the paid key and secret that you have, and how to integrate it will figure it for you, right? So I will just show you, yeah, just in the interest of time, I think we have all 10 more minutes. So let me just show you how the website looks like, right? While in prod. Yeah, so this is the iterating and polishing step, right? So in terms of you think of, okay, what is not working, right? You go back, fix it, redeploy, test, and move forward, right? You look at the backend side of things. Okay, how do I handle scale? How do I handle deployment, right? And all these things come into play together. Okay. So those kinds of things come into play together. So yeah, just running things. And now things are running fine, right? So you verified things are running fine. So you can say that deploy this in a Vercel app. Or you can say something was not working, right? We saw the explore page, we were not getting it correctly. So you can say that fix the explore page and so on. Okay. So individual things you can say, so you don't have to you don't have to say please or anything like that. You can just say this is not working, fix this. This is not working, fix this. Or this is how I wanted it. Currently, this is how it looks like. Change the UI, right? So in individual things you can make changes too. Okay. And you can also, yeah, you can test this application by the QA team. You can tell that, okay, this is the website that is built, now go about and test it, right? Or you can tell Claude itself that behave as a QA and then test individual flows, right? So because you have, or write the unit tests, write the integration tests and so on, right? So you can tell Claude to do those for you also. Okay. So that kind of thing, right? This is a similar thing that I had built earlier. This is already deployed as a Vercel app, right? So this will open on your websites also, right? Wondertogether.vercel.app. We had built it in the last thing, which I deployed it after the call, right? So you can see the planning. So you have planning properly, you have the connect, right? How do you connect? You have groups, right? And then you have stays. So you can see this website, this UI is completely built by Claude, right? Nothing has been done by us, right? Roadmap, and there it's a 4 hour session. So I added like sign in, Google sign in, and so on, right? Some things you will see not working because some keys might have expired and so on. But yeah, this everything was built by AI. Okay. And yeah, then you can see the roadmap, right? Yeah, if you want, like this is the release roadmap. This is for internal things, so I just kept the release roadmap also in terms of the MVP, right? The growth, the phase, the scale parts, and so on, right? So this basically gives an idea to the engineering teams, right? And yeah, so that is mostly it. So generally when you show this kind of POCs, right? So this, how much it took time? It took around 3 to 4 hours, some iterations, some polishing, right? Some issues that were there we fixed, and so on. Okay, so that is it, and you can see the website is pretty good, right? It looks very decent. Building this would take maybe the UI team, the UX team will take maybe a couple of weeks to nail down the spec. The engineering team will take a month or two to even build it up, right? And everything, all of that you can do in 4 hours, right? And then you go into the nitty gritty is the testing, the QA, the unit test that your team has to do it, right? The deployment pipelines and all, you can also work with it. Okay. Vercel is completely free. So there is a question in chat that how much you needed to pay for making it live. I didn't pay anything. Okay. And Vercel is, I think it allows you to have the domain for 6 months, I think. So this was built, I think, in April, and this is what it looks like now, right? Vercel is free. And so you can also tell Claude here itself that, okay, deploy as a Vercel app, right? So you can tell deploy as a Vercel app, just that, right? So it will figure out, okay, I'll deploy as a Vercel app. So you can see here CLI installation. It is asking permissions to install Vercel locally, right? Then it will use Docker to deploy to Vercel and create the Vercel link for you. Okay. So yeah, this is how you can make things live, build a POC quickly, and so on. Right. Yeah. Okay. Right. So you can see a vercel.json gets created, right? This is the JSON file gets created. This is the website that Vercel is giving, right? And that's how we are moving forward. Okay. Right. So yeah, that is a bit about it. So just to give you a quick summary of what we discussed. Okay, yeah, this link is public. You can go about and look at this link, wandertogether.vercel.app. Okay. Yeah, just to give a summary of what we discussed, because we are almost on time. I think we talked majorly about the AI assisted life cycle, right? A spec driven development. So we talked about like how we can build a, like how we should first build a spec, and then we should go into like we should like think of the requirements first, right? We should think of what are the functional things first, then we should think of the design, right? Use AI to brainstorm, right? We did not brainstorm a lot today, we just gave a spec, but we can also brainstorm, right? Say that, oh, this is what I want, do you think this is right? What is the market? What is the total addressable market for this? What is the TAM? How do I monetize this? How do I make search engine optimize it? How do I make a website that it is like optimized for search engines, right? It comes up first, and so on. So that brainstorming requirements, then the design, the spec is built, then you add the MD files, the folder structures, and so on, and then the files, then the agent and work on the files, and finally the deployment that happens, right? So this is whole thing. And yeah, going back, so it is just trying to deploy it, right, into Vercel. As I said, Vercel is completely free, so you can always go into it and build things. Okay. So yeah, that is a bit of summary for the discussion. So I think yeah, I think there are other things also apart from Vercel. I just do it in Vercel because it's easy to do. You can do it in anything, render or anything like that too, right? Yeah. So Niyati, if you are there.
Yes, I think we have covered most of the question, Parijat, because the session is such that we also it becomes almost interactive because we are able to see the comments while Claude is doing its own thing. And yes, I think we answered most of all the questions. And Yeah, I think the last question was on just to summarize, and you have done that beautifully. So thanks for that, Parijat. I think we can call it a day. I have also posted for the last time the calendar link of our program expert. If you guys want a structured approach, a structured roadmap for your AI upskilling, please go ahead, talk to us. You may want to uh, take some time to figure it out, but that's all right. Please feel free to do that. And thanks, Parijat, for the wonderful session. As Nitin says, I agree. And thanks for joining again. I will leave you to it. Thanks, folks. Have a good evening. Rest fit. Take care. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you,